Running Away, a memoir by Armijo. Intro. I, Armijo, have lived through the rise and fall of Pedro Baca's track and field career, and I am here to tell this story through an outsider's point of view. Pedro has had it all and has lost it all during his running career. Pedro has some of the most experience in the state of New Mexico about this topic. He's felt what it's like to be great and what it's been like at the bottom. In this book, you will learn all of his mistakes and successes. If you don't know Pedro Baca, nicknamed Pedro Bac, and his influence, you need this book more than anyone. Do you know how it feels to be a champion? Chapter 1. Origin, freshman year. Pedro's running career started his freshman year of high school. I was walking down to the track, very anxious because I didn't think I'd know anyone on the team, when a young Pedro Baca broke my nerves, while he was also walking down to be a part of the team. This made me very happy that Pedro was also doing track. It also made me very happy to know I could beat at least one person on the team. Boy, was I wrong, because I underestimated Pedro. Pedro would beat me every practice. He would lift more weight than me in the weight room. We were young sprinters, just 14 years of age. The season was going great, hitting track workouts, training in the weight room after, many friends and many games. We looked up to the older kids from afar, dreaming of being them, but never talking to them. Everything was going great, until COVID shut down the whole season. We got to witness one track meet, and then it was over. Chapter 2. Sophomore year, Pedro's peak. Come back a year and a half later, we were more out of shape than ever, but that's okay, that's what training is for. Already starting track, sacrifices were made for Pedro. He would have to stay after school an hour and a half to wait for track practice, while the other kids would go home and come back for track. The track team was under new management this season, with a brand new head coach. Pedro and I were very fond of this coach. He wore pit vipers, a blue and orange camo mask, and a fitted hat. Pedro once said it was like being trained by a professional coach. This is where the training arc started. Coach would put us through grueling workouts with masks in the scorching hot summer heat. Sooner or later, we were getting good. Coach knew what he was doing. He was making fast sprinters because that's the only thing Coach knew how to do. With all this training, there was only one thing left to do: compete. Pedro and I made varsity and were prepping for our first ever track meet. Pedro was going to run 4 races: the 200 meter, the 400 meter, the 800 meter, and the 1600 meter. All 4 of these events at 100% effort would be new to him. I had 3 running events, and I was jealous that Pedro got one more. I had the 200 meter, the 400 meter, and the 800 meter, and also thrown into pole vault. Race day were to come around, and the first race the boys would run that day was the 400 meter. My goal was just not to come last. We both line up in our lanes. The guns go off, and Pedro runs off like no other race. The liner runners started to spread out around the 100 meter mark. This is where Pedro started to pass everyone. Boom! A few seconds passed. Pedro's pushing the top 3 runners, even managing to hold second for a large portion of that race. But Pedro's inexperience got the best of him. He pushed too hard from the 100 meter mark to the 300 meter mark, and had nothing left in the tank for the last 100 meters. He ended up coming last that race, with myself only beating him by milliseconds, giving it my all to pass him at the very end, and Pedro giving it his all just to finish. I believe if Pedro would have paced this race better and had more experience, he could have come on the podium for his first race ever. This could have been the start of something great, but instead was the start of a tragic list of unfortunate events for Pedro, and a series of great events starting for myself. After this race, Pedro ended up having to quit the track team, not by choice. This was very upsetting because Pedro had so much potential as a young athlete. That race was the end of Pedro's sophomore track year. The saddest part is, if Pedro somehow had the choice to stay on the team, he could have celebrated winning districts with the rest of us. Chapter 3. Junior year, Pedro's fall. Characters reunite. The energy was different this year though. There's a lot more people, which I thought was bad. I preferred the season with less people because it was more of a tighter community, and winning meant more. Over the time which track ended last year, Pedro spent the summer with his dad, and his dad made him fat. Also joined cross country in between the seasons, which is another reason the energy was different, because this season would not be like any other. if I trained for distance races and not sprints. But because of another tragic event, Pedro would have to quit track for a second time and not showcase his potential. The team would also go on to win districts, but this time meant nothing to me. Chapter 4, Pedro's comeback. Who knows if Pedro would have had a better sequence of events? Maybe he could have went down in high school track as one of the greats. If track didn't get shut down his freshman year, if he would have ran all his sophomore year, never got out of shape, if he would have made it past preseason his junior year, it's just a tragedy of all the unfortunate events he had to face in his career. But that did not stop Pedro. Senior year, there was one last recreational race between myself and Pedro. Both of us not being a part of the track team anymore, and both of us being has-beens. Pedro had something to prove. His whole high school career, people constantly brought up that one race where I barely beat him. He was the laughingstock of it all. So he knew there was no possible way he would let me win this final high school 400-meter dash, even if very few people saw. Both of us out-of-shape runners gave it one more shot, and guess who won? Pedro.